Boker Tov. Today's daf is Daf Samach Daled in Sanhedrin as we learn for Achenical basis for Hanasum Ratzar V'Shivya. Maybe I'll come home soon. Tashma, we're at the sixth line on the page. Again, the Gemara we're discussing. The Gemara had said that the Jews really knew that the Avodah Zarah can't do much, pretty much like what Avram Avinu saw with his father, that the idols are pretty much just dumb stones who have no brains or anything like that. They can't do anything. But because they liked the rayas, they said, "Yeah, it's a good. Let's get involved in it." And then they sort of got attached to it. They got addicted to it. So the Gemara now brings another proof that they did apparently have a Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. You know, this famous story with Menashe that he came to him in a dream and he said, you have no concept. Today we feel, Avodah Zarah, who cares? That's a joke. They can't do anything. But there was a tremendous Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah. So we'll see. Tashma on the sixth line of Daf Samach Daled. They cried out in a great voice, El Hashem. They cried out very loudly, Hashem Elokeim. Maimer, what did they say? I'm Rav Yehuda. So Rav Yehuda says this is for the Sakravatari that the Bnei Israel had with Hashem. B'tem Rav Yonasan, some say it was in the name of Rav Yonasan. Bye, like woe unto us. Hainu, this Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, the Achri Lebeisa, he destroyed the Beis Hamikdash, V'kayel Echale, and also destroyed the Heichal in the Beis Hamikdash. The Ketlinu Tzadike, and he killed the Tzadikim. In other words, this Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah was the reason for all our downfall. By Glinu Yisrael Merayu, and Bnei Israel was exiled from the land, V'dainu Barakah Benan, and he still is dancing among us, right? In other words, this Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah is such a terrible thing that it caused our destruction and our exile, and it's still causing us to go astray. Why did you give us this Yetzer Hara? El Kublei Agra. You only gave us the Yetzer Hara that we should get reward. In other words, since there's an evil inclination, and we have to fight that and be positive and do the right thing. So because of that, if we get reward for fighting off the Yetzer Hara. You only gave this for so we should get the reward. Lo iyubin and lager binan. We don't want the Yetzer Hara and we don't want the reward. Leave us alone. Take away the Yetzer Hara. So what do you see over here? That clearly there was a Yetzer Hara to do Avodah Zarah. That was what their claim was against Hashem. The answer is Basar Davikube. Again, the same answer after they got used to it. Originally, they didn't feel there was much in the Avodah Zarah. They had no power. They just did it because the Avodah Zarah allowed them, by following that religion, so to speak, they were able to be promiscuous with adultery. Yasu Tlasiyom Betanisa. So they complained. They got to God, get rid of the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, and because we don't want it, and we'll forego the reward of fighting against it. We can't contain ourselves, and it's leading us astray. So they fasted for 3 days. Bo Rachme, and they pleaded to God, they beseeched to God. Nafal Pitka Merakia, and a note came down from heaven, Davik Sibbe Emes, which says Emes, which is God's signature, truth, as if to say, okay, I agree. He says Emes, it's like he stamped it, says, okay. Amrav Chanina, Shmami Yisi Chosam Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu Emes. You see that God's signature, or his seal rather, maybe that's the proper word, not signature. His seal is Emes, because that's what he said. Like he sealed it. He says, okay. So how did Hashem get rid of the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah? So he got rid of the Yetzer Hara for it's the Yetzer Hara for all bad things, including murder, adultery, etc. Nafak Kaguria Denura Mibes Kashe Kashim. So like a small lion, like a cub, a small lion, a lion of fire came out from the Kashe Kachim, and Amr Lahu Navi Yisrael, and the Navi, apparently that was Zachariah, said, Hani Yisrael Avodah, that's the Yetzer Avodah Zarah. That's the Yetzer Avodah Zarah. And it left the Beis Hamikdash, and the Jews tried to grab it. Badi to Katafsili, when they grabbed it, Ishtamet bin Saminei, a hair came out of this Yetzer Hara, this being, this creature, whatever. A hair came out as they grabbed it. And he screamed so loud for pulling out its hair that it caused him pain, caused the Yetzer Hara pain, and you heard it for a long distance away, like 400 passing. It was a tremendous noise. Amru, so the Jews said, what should we do with this Yetzer Hara? If we try to kill it, maybe they'll have Rachmanas on it, because you see it's crying, it's screaming, and maybe a Rosh Hashanah will chas v'chalil listen to its crying and won't let us kill it. Amalei Navi, so the Navi said, listen, I'll tell you what you do. Shadyu bedu the davra, put him in a lead pipe, a lead pot or something, a lead, some sort of a lead urn or pot or pipe, because you ba'avra, and covered it with lead, the shayif kale that will absorb its any noise that it makes, and as you won't be able to. It says vayomer, and the Navi said, Zos harisha, this is the evil. Vayashlech soil tochef, they threw it into the measure. Vayashlech es even oferes alpi, and they threw like the lead, I guess molten lead, over its mouth. In other words, it was sealed up. Amr, they said, Kol veis ratzon, who now, since Hashem is being kind to us and gave us this Yetzer Hara, it's a propitious time. Niboy rachme, let's pray a Yitzra Davera. Let's also pray not only for the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah, which has now been contained, but rather let's pray also get rid of the Yetzer Hara for adultery, so we won't fall victim to that sin. Bo rachme. So they beseeched God for Rachmanis. Hashem should give him over the Yetzer Hara for Avodah Zarah also. Imser b'yadayu. And also Hashem gave him the Yetzer Hara, Hashem gave it to the Jews also. Chavshu tlasa yomei. They put him in jail for 3 days to see what would happen. Ibol be'asa bas yom lechola. A chicken egg, let's say, which was a 1-day-old chicken egg, which apparently was considered very good for healing purposes, as a remedy for a chola. He puts on b'chol Eretz Yisrael v'lo ashku. They couldn't find an egg. Why? The chickens weren't laying any eggs because they weren't mating with the roosters. Because the Yetzer Hara for adultery, meaning it's really the Yetzer Hara for sex, was gone because they locked them up. There was no Yetzer Hara for the Yetzer Hara for sex at all. So there weren't any eggs. Apparently, the people also had difficulty mating. Amru, what should we do? Niboy palga, should we just say, listen, we want the Yetzer Hara for adultery gone, but we still want the Yetzer Hara for sex. We want that the sexual drive should remain with us. So as we want to split it, palga b'kila yav. The Baruch doesn't mix up things from heaven. In other words, you either get it or you don't get it. So they blotted out, they knocked out its eyes, right? They gouged out its eyes of the Yetzer Hara. Ahani beitelo igri inish bikro say. So what happened? In other words, if you want to have the sexual drive around, there's going to be a sexual drive for adultery too. But they blotted out its eyes, so at least it helped that a person does not have a sexual drive for incest, unless you live in the South. But for the Jewish people in Eretz Yisrael, there was no the South of America, not below in Shebekrovas. At least there shouldn't be a sexual drive for family members. In other words, that's why there is no Yetzer Hara. People don't know what it's today. Why does a person have a Yetzer Hara for adultery or for whatever, for pnuya, whatever, but he doesn't have a sexual drive for his own family members? That's because they were able to knock out the Yetzer Hara for that, and that worked. I'm Rabbi Yerab. Ma'isa benachos. There was a story benachos. There was a story with one shiksa. Shahaisa cholavios. She was very sick. Amra, and she said, and we've been talking here about the Avodah Zarah of Pe'er, Peor, and the different Avodah Zarahs. So she was very sick, and she said, if she gets healed from this sickness, she'll go and worship every Avodah Zarah in the world. She'll go to all of them and thank them. She rose from her bed, from her sick bed. She went to every Avodah Zarah. When she came to the Peor, that's the Avodah Zarah, which they defecate in front of it. That's how they serve it. She asked the priests over there, but what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to bow down, give a donation, kiss it? What are you supposed to do? Amrullah, Ochlin, Tardin, they eat beets or spinach. Vishosin, Sheikh, when you drink some strong beer, and they defecate in front of it. In other words, that gives them shulshul, and that's what you do. Amra says, that's what I'm going to do. I have no intention of doing that. I'd rather be sick again. I'd rather get sick than have to do this. In other words, her shvuah was that if she gets healthy, she'll visit every Avodah Zarah in the world. When she came to this one, she says, I'm not going to do that. So I'd rather do that for lo savad avodah zarah b'kach. I'm not going to do avodah zarah that way. Atem Beis Yisrael Einokain. You Jews, you'll do. You're different. Why? Because it says Einokain. You're not going to do. You'll do everything for every avodah zarah. That's how the Jews at that point were so tied up with avodah zarah. Why? The pasuk says on its smodim lebal por summit patil. The pasuk says on its smodim par that they are attached. They are samud to the bal por, like the cover of a lid, like a lid cover, which is tight and very close to them, right? That's it. Even though you cleave to God, that's only like two dates which are stuck to one another, but can easily be separated. That's not as close as a tight lid on a bottle or on a jar or something, as if to say that the Jews are closer to Avodah Zarah than they are to God. That's what this first pshat is. Maybe that's what the Shiksa was saying. But Masnisa Tana learned the opposite. And it's not a Malpaor, when you say they're attached to the Balpaor, that's Kitsamid al Yaisha. That's like a woman's bracelet. Samid is a bracelet, al Yaisha, which is loose. That's Dvukamam, you really cleave to Hashem. In other words, we're cleave to Hashem very close. This we were close to Balpaor was less so. Tanabana Maisa Bisabata ben Alis. That was his name. But Ben Alis, Rashi says that Alis is actually the name of a place. Like he came from that place, like they say, B'nai Marava, came from Eretz Yisrael. He came from this place. Shehiskir Chamoro Linachris. He rented out his donkey to a shiksa, Linachris Achas, and he was, I guess, riding with her or whatever. He was riding with her. Even Shigil Lepor, when they came to the poor church there, Amrlo, she said, Hamten Li, wait here, keep the meter running, but wait for me here, Ad Shekanes, until I go in. They say and I'll come out. Wait till I come and go. Let me get a chance to go in and pray. We can't imagine. We who are Jews and pray to the Baruch Shalom every day, we can imagine what it means. We understand religion. We at least understand religion. That religion we can't understand because those gods are worthless. But we can at least understand that there's an inclination of people to want to look for some super being, to look for religion in some form. So she said, "Wait till I come out." After she came out, he told her, the driver, the Jew who rented out his donkey, said, you wait here with the donkey while I go in. They said, till I go in and come out. Aren't you a Jew? What are you doing here? Right? That's where it started from. What do you care? What do you care? What's your business? I want to go in and pray to you. Nichnas, he went in, par b'fanav, he defecated in front of in the face of the Avodah Zarah, the kinach b'chotmo, and he wiped himself on the nose of the idol. Imagine as he wiped himself, really disgusting. Well, in Masharsi Avodah Zarah, the priests over there, they said Makalson, they were praising him. Nobody's ever done such a great job. In other words, the whole Avodah Zarah is to shame the Avodah Zarah, to degrade it, right? To degrade it and defecate in front of it. And you've gone above and beyond by wiping yourself on the nose of it. Nobody's ever done. What a great job you've done. Terrible story. Now, if a person defecates, that's the kind of avoda it does. Even though he's trying to shame it, the avoda is shaming it. That's what they want you to do. They want you to shame it. That's how ridiculous the whole thing is. They don't show it respect in our terms. That's afagav mechavim lebizui. You're chayiv if you have afagav, even though you had intention to do it, and you'd be chayiv misa. Rashi says, if it was a shogeg, you didn't know that it's asur, you didn't know this is avodah zarah, so you bring a carbon. But if they warned him, even though you had kavanah to shame it, that's the way that they worship that avodah zarah, and you get chayiv misa. Hazar kefel markulis. Markulis is a avodah zarah that they had. Some say it was like 3 stones, like in a triangle. You threw 3 stones in it. Interesting. Tosas here, we had it elsewhere also. Tosas says here, he brings it's really on the Mishnah. Tosas says that kilos is a lashon of praise. Right, we just said that Makalsonosa, right, that they praised this guy for what he did in front of the poor. Kills lashon ben the Chacham. He says Rashi Tosas says lashon Chacham kinu osa legnai v'karo kulis lashon lag vakelas bagoyim. Right, we say lag kelas. They called it like shameful. So what is it? If you throw a stone at Markulis, again, that's about even though you throw stones, even though you're trying to break it or do whatever it is, it's a group of stones there and you throw it, or if it's some sort of an idol, even though you're trying to damage it and bruise it and throw rocks at it, that's the avoda. Now a story. Rav Menashe Havikazal Beit Tursa. This person, Rav Menashe, I guess I don't know how he was a Rav, but that's what they told him. Rav Menashe Havikazal Beit Tursa. He went to that place. He was on the road to this particular place, Beit Tursa it's called. Amalo, and they said Avodah Zari. They said, this is an Avodah Zara. The Koyach, this is Avodah Zara. So he's an Avodah Zara. So he got angry. Avodah Zara. He was a rabbi. He's against Avodah Zara. Shokol Pisa. He took like a clod or a rock. Shadaban. He threw it at the idol, thinking that he was, shaming it. Idols, get rid of it. Spit at it. Throw rocks at it. Amalo, no, you've done the wrong thing. Markulasi. It's a markulas, meaning that's the way they worship it. You were trying to degrade it and destroy it. That's how they worship it. Amalahu, wait a minute. The Mishnah said that if you throw it towards the markulas, like in front of it, I threw it at the idol. I was trying to damage it. Right? Say Amalu Azorik Evan the markulas Tanan. I haven't done anything wrong. That's only if you throw it towards the markulas in front of it. I tried to actually damage it. Also, Shalom Medrash, he went and asked him the base Medrash. What did the Mishnah really say? Did the Mishnah say Evan Limarkulis or Bimarkulis? Amalei Azark Evan Bimarkulis. No, you actually have to throw it at the idol, not towards the idol, but at the idol. So what you did really was Avodah Zarah. You have to bring a carbon now. You didn't realize it at the time, right? Because he thought that he's destroying an Avodah Zarah. He didn't realize that's actually the way they worship it. But Bimarkulis now. Even though you're trying to stone it, basically, you're trying to destroy it, that's the way they worship it. So you were over on an Isser Amnam Bishogi, you have a carbon. I guess he couldn't bring a carbon, it was on by base Mikdash anymore. Amalahu. Ezel Ashkelei, so he said, well, wait a minute. If that's the case, even when you throw it at the idol and hits the idol, that's also the way the avoda. Should I go take it back now? I mean, I've done the Aveir already. I threw a rock at Markolis, which is the way they worship it. It was B'shogeg. Okay, I'm not Chayv Misa. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't mean to worship it, but that's how they do it. But should I just take the rock back now? Yeah. So Amulu, should I take it back? Amule, they told him, whether you take it away or you put it there, either way you're Chayv. Why call Chad v'Chad Raf Chalichaber Teshavek? If you take away the rock, that leaves more room for the next guys. So you're helping it along either way. So therefore, don't take it back, even though you've done it already. He said, maybe I should take it back, that the Avodah Zarah shouldn't have enough for more rocks there. No, don't take back the rock, because you'll leave room for more. So just leave it as it is, and eventually bring a carbon. Who was it? There were Rabbanim they did an Aveir B'Shogeg, they would make a note, so when the base Mikdash is rebuilt, they'll bring a carbon. Yeah.
The Muslims have a procession. They go around that rock, that big.
The dome of the rock?
No. In Saudi Arabia.
On Saudi Arabia. Oh, where they trample everybody to death. Yeah. Huh? They throw rocks at what? Is there an idol there? They don't have idols.
It's just a big cube.
Huh?
The Kaaba.
What's the purpose of that?
That's the university, because they don't have to do it when they come to us. They throw it in the
Okay. No, I'm saying, what is their purpose? They don't believe in idols. They don't have idol worshiping either. They just go there and trample each other. Okay. Hanosim Izar Lamoch. Now, the apostles have ever heard of this case.
Sorry, they're throwing rocks at the devil. That's what it is.
They're throwing rocks at the devil. I see. Okay. So the devil's there. So the devil's in Mecca. Okay. Hanosim Izar Lamoch. If a person Chas v'Chalila gives his children over to Molech, and we'll describe what Molech is exactly, but we know we think of it as child sacrifice. Not necessarily so. So Anosim Izara Lamolech, Enechayvat Shimsar Lamolech. He has to give it over to the priests there, to their komrim, B'Yavir B'Eish, and they pass it, and then they pass the child through fire. Now, in other words, you have to do both things. That's the point of the Mishnah. Now, if you look back at the Mishnah on Samach Aleph Amid Beis, where we mentioned it, the last part of the Mishnah says, Apor Atzma Lebal Por, that's the way it was, Zuev Edasa, Hazorik Evan Markula, Zuev Edasa. But when it talks about, no, not that, I shouldn't say that Mishnah. because that's already in detail. We're going back to the Mishnah on Nun Gimel, right? The Mishnah on Nun Gimel, you look back at the Mishnah, we talked about all the things that you're chayiv misa for, and then we went on to the details, the later Mishnayos, or maybe it's one big Mishnah, gave all those details. It said, you do avodah zarah, or you give your children to the molech. Now, that sounds like it's two things, not one. Because if molech is avodah zarah, they say, okay, this is a kind of avodah zarah, like we've described, different avodah zarahs. There's markulas, there's peor, or pe'er, peor latzma bal peor, or other kinds of idols. But the fact that you say avodah zarah and nosem zara malch indicates that it's two separate things. So you're not chayiv until you actually hand the child over to the priest and they pass him through the fire. We'll see what that means. Let's say he gave it to the priests of Molech, but they didn't pass him through fire, or have beish masal Molech, but he passed him through fire, but they didn't go to the Molech. Based on the psukim, as we'll see in the Gemara. Now the Mishnah said, we said in the Mishnah, in the original Mishnah back on the Gimel, it said avodah zarah and Molech. Sounds like two different things. It's not a kind of avodah zarah, because we described all these avodah zarahs, right? How do you worship the avodah zarah? With slaughtering or this or that or whatever. What's what you're chayiv misa for? What you're not chayiv misa for? But sounds like avodah zarah is one thing, molech is something else. Amar Bavin Tanan command Amar Molech avodah zarah. It's a machlokas. Our Mishnah goes like the one who says that molech is not avodah zarah. We'll see the nafkamina. It's not an avodah zarah. It's just a separate isser. You can't do that stuff. The Tanya echad lemolech ve'echad l'shar avodah zarah chayav. The Tanakama says whether it's molech or other avodah zarah. That sounds like molech is a kind of avodah zarah. That's not the Tana of our Mishnah. That's the first Tana. Echad lemolech, whether it's molech or other avodah zarah, you're chayav. Reb Lezer, if you Reb Lezer, Reb Shimon Omer lemolech chayav shalom potter. If you, let's say you worship, if you did molech, you're chayav. If you did, let's say you passed you gave the kid to, let's say it's Baal Peor. You went to the Peor church, whatever, or the Markulis church, and you gave your child over to one of the priests there, and they passed them through fire. You're not chayav. You're not chayav. You're potter. It's not a good thing. It's potter. It doesn't mean you should do it. It's usher. But it's not. Reb Lezer says, if you only do it to the molech, and there's only this thing, and I hesitate to call it an avodah zarah, it seems like it's a kind of avodah zarah, for lack of a better word, it's a kind of idol worship, but it's not the real idol worship that the Torah calls avodah zarah, according to Reb Lezer Shimon. L'molech chayiv shalom malach potter, meaning shalom malach potter. The molech dafka Rashi says 3 lines from the bottom page. Ksiv shedarka bekach v'lo mishum avodah zarah. So if it's not avodah zarah, the hame echa yavdu nafka. In other words, if it was kedarka dafka ksiv shedarka bekach v'lo mishum avodah zarah asher. In other words, the losa say is not because of avodah zarah. Avodah zarah we know echadavtu. Don't worship avodah zarah the way they normally do it. It's a separate thing. It's not avodah zarah, and therefore he says if you did this kind of fire, what call it fire worship or whatever, it's not really fire worship. It's passing the kid through fire, and that doesn't mean that the kid's going to die, as we'll see. It just means you're passing through fire. That's only usher if you did it to the whatever you call it, to the church that's called the Molech church. Let's call it the church of Molech, because it's not really avodah zarah according to Reb Lezer Shimon. Amar Abai, Reb Lezer Shimon and Tignos, they both said the same idea that Molech is not really avodah zarah. Reb Lezer Shimon Adam, we just said that you're only chayiv if you do this passing the kid through fire with the Molech, not with others. And Reb Chaim and Tignos, the time Reb Chaim and Tignos Omer, they mat tufs Torah lashon Molech. Why do they call it Molech? And Molech means kol shem nichu aleim. If you made him like a king, Molech is like a lashon of a king, like a melech. If you make melech, afilu tzruav, afilu kisim. Even if you made a stone or a chip of wood, you call that Molech. Okay, if you call that Molech, and that church, the church of Molech, that's basically just a rock or a chip or something, and you did the fire procedure there too, you're chayiv. Rav Amar. So apparently they say the same thing, right? That's what Abayas. That's what, who said that? Abaya said, Rav Lazar B'Shim Mechinis both said the same thing. Rav Lazar B'Shim we already had that said Molech is not a Avodah Zarah. And Chanin Matignas, this idea that why I said Molech means you made it in charge, you put him in charge. Rav Amar Molech Haroik B'Nai. No, the difference is that Rav Lazar B'Shim who says Molech is a real church. It's only if it's a kavua. That's the Molech, that's the Molech church. It's built up there. They know it's the church of Molech is a big sign. Making a little stone or a chip to make that Molech, which is just a temporary thing. It's not a real church. That would not be Molech according to Rav Lazar B'Shim, and even though it is according to B'Chinim and Teknis. Okay, that's one machlokas. Amar Rav Yanai. Rav Yanai says about Molech in general. You have to give it to the priests of Avodah Zarah, the attendants there, whatever their job is, the Gaboim. We'll call them the Gaboim, right? Shneimar u'mizarach lo sitain. Don't give it to them. Lahavir lemolech. Don't give them your children to the priest so that they will pass it through to the molech, pass through the fire. I might think of what? If let's say they passed them through fire, but they didn't give them over to the priest. No, you have to give it. Special halacha. Whether you say that molech is a kind of avodah zarah, or it's not, or Rav Shimon knows that it's not avodah zarah. So if it's not avodah zarah, so it's got to be done exactly that way. If it is avodah zarah, we'll see that even if it's shelo kedarka, you could be that you're chayiv. So here he says that whether if you pass them through the fire and you didn't give them over to the priest, you're not chayiv. Let's say you gave him over to the priest, didn't pass him to the fire. It says lo sitain lahaver. Maser behaver. Let's say you gave him over to the priest and they passed him to the fire, but it wasn't for molech. It's got to be the molech dafka, otherwise you're not chayiv. This assumes that molech is not avodah zarah, because if it is avodah zarah, even shelo kedarka, possibly you'd be chayiv, as we'll see. Maser behaver lemolech v'lo be'esh. Let's say you handed them over to the priests and they passed them through for the molech church, but it wasn't through fire. No, so the answer is no. You're not chayiv. Never kan lahavir. It says lahavir means lahavir lemolech. That's in Dvarim. It says there should not be found among you somebody who passes their kids through fire. It doesn't use the lashon of molech over there, but it uses the lashon of mavir. It says heavier over here, lo sitin lahavir lamolech, right? And there it says eish and dvarim, where it says also lahavir. Malohom deish, just like over there it's fire. Afkan deish, makan molech, and just like over here in Vayikra, it's talking about molech, aflala molech. In other words, we put the two together. Again, in Vayikra Yud Ches, that's where we have all these surim of adultery. Remember Yud Ches in Achrei Mos, that's where you have all the adulterous unions. And the last one is mizarach lo sitin avilamalach below. How does that end up, Michael? Right. Yeah, and Hashem, right. So that's in Yud Ches, and Chaf is the punishment, as we'll see the chorus. Okay, so all these things tell you that you have to do it exactly in this procedure. It's got to be to Molech. It's got to be, you have to give over to the priest. You have to give it, and they have to pass them through the fire. No fire doesn't work. Okay. Or if it's not for Molech, it doesn't work. Amar Vachav Rei Durava, Hever Kol Zaro Potter. You know what? Let's say he gave all his children the Zaro for the Molech. You think that's for sure Chayiv? No, you're Potter. Mizaracha v'lo Kol Zaracha. Interesting, right? Mizaracha. So L'chora, he had to give him over at one shot because he could go over in stages. Let's say he had 2 kids and he put the first one through there. Shalachai B'chayiv. Then when he puts the second one through there, then he's potter afterwards. Doesn't make sense. The must be when he gave them all over at one shot. I assume that's what it means. Let's say the kid couldn't walk through anyway. In other words, you passed him over, but is that the normal way to do it? Rashi says he can't walk himself, but you gave him over. So you chayiv there too. Rashi, heavier sumo. Let's say he's blind or yashima if he's sleeping. Ben beno ben bita. What about grandchildren? It says mizaro from his seed. Right? Yomi says in Dvarim, it says, lo yimatzu b'cham mavir b'no ubito, his son or daughter. What about grandchildren? So tifshet miachara. The kasha of suma and yashin is maybe less of kasha of suma. In other words, does have to be normally somebody who could walk through himself, but you gave him over, or somebody who's not capable of walking anyway because they're blind, they're sleeping. What do you say? So the Gemara says tifshet miachara. At least we posted the question about grandchildren. The Tanya ki mizaro lamolech, ki mizaro nasan lamolech. Now that's in Perek Chaf in Pasuk. Let's see which Pasuk it is. I think it's Pasuk Beis. Right, in Pasuk Gimel rather. It says Vaniyat and Perikov when it talks about the punishments. Remember, Perik Yurches is the prohibitions. Pasuk in Perikov it says Vaniyat and Espanai Beisha Ubecharati Osam Mikermo Kimizaro Nasan Lamolach. Kimizaro Nasan Lamolach. So the pasuk is Kimizaro Nasan Lamolach. Matam Malomad Fishin Emmer Lo Yimatzachaba Ma'avir Beno Bita Beish. The pasuk we quoted before from Dvarim, where it says son and daughter. Any other Beno Bito. That's if it's a son or a daughter. Ben Beno Ben Bito Menan. How do I know grandchildren? Talmud Lomar Besito Mizaro. Now that's not Ki Mizaro, that's Besito Mizaro, which is the next pasuk. Pasuk Dalet says it's a name and issue if the Jewish people don't take care of him. Besito Mizaro Lamolach. In other words, the pasuk Gimel says Ki Mizaro Nasan Lamolach. That's what we started with. We started with saying, right? The Bryce says Ki Mizaro Lamolach. Matam, what does that teach me? Because since in the Dvarim it says only sons and daughter, how do I know grandchildren? Tamlo besito mizaro, any of a seed. So the Gemara has a kasha though, but you're quoting two different psukim. You started with ki tana pasuk mechizaro, pasuk gimel ki mizaro, all right? Ki mizaro nasan lamach. That's pasuk gimel. Pasuk besito mizaro, and then you end off with the pasuk in pasuk dal, which is besito mizaro lamolach. Which one is it? So the answer is that's a different drasha. The drasha achrinu. It's a different drasha. We use both of them. In other words, the second one, bizarro, is to teach me, besita mizaro malach teaches me, zaro ain li ella zara kosher. If he had kosher, let's say he had a kid who was a mamzer, zara pasal manayin tamalama besita mizaro. In other words, the first pasuk ki mizaro teaches me even grandchildren, presumably great grandchildren, anybody that he had, any of his seed. The second pasuk of bizarro of besito mizaro teach not ki mizaro but besito mizaro teaches me that lamolach teaches me that even if it's a seed, even if they are a puzzle seed, even if they're not kosher children. Amar Yehuda, you're not chayav until you pass them through the fire in the normal way, right? Otherwise, if it's not derech havor, if it's not derech shaloshinim and achok elakederech minhag havor samalach, he says the way not. Well, how do they do that? What do they do that? Amar Abaye. So we're going to have two different opinions. Abaye says sharga delivni b'metzah. They put a row of bricks in the middle, and fire on either side, and the kid has to walk over the bricks, right, to try to get through the fire. Not that but he might get burned up. He might get burned. Rav Omer, no. It's like the leaping that the kids do on Purim. In those days, today kids do kinds of stuff too, but in those days the kids would make on Purim. It was one of the Purim tricks and things that they did. They would make a pit in the street, and in the pit they would have a fire, and they would leap over the fire to see, if you didn't get singed, right? That was it. But the point is that the kids are not burned up. It's not the same as burning at the stake. We had the other day about the story with Chizkiah's father Achaz wanted to burn him alive, and the mother puts salamander blood on him to protect him. There you actually wanted to burn him alive. Here, at least according to the second opinion, he's not going to be burned at all. It's just a trick that they play. But that since they do that, that's the way they worship Moloch. Whether Moloch is a real avodah zarah or it's included in avodah zarah, it's just a different kind of service that the Torah forbade. Fine, but either way, that's it. So according to Tanik said Rava, that the kid didn't really get burned. Have you heard Borrego? Let's say you pass him through by walking through, like that's the first way, walking through between the fire, you're putter. Because it's not walking through. You're not supposed to walk. The way they pass him through is by jumping over the fire. He's only chayiv for his own children. Okay, it said beno bito chayiv. If it's his children, he's chayiv. Only children. Ava v'imo. Let's say he did it to his parents, or achav achosa, or his sister, brother and sister. Putter. Hever asma. What about if he did it himself? He said, I'll try it myself. Putter. Why? Because it's only mizaro. Rav Blazer of Shimon chayiv. Right? He says even for yourself, not for your brother, sister, parents, but for yourself, you're chayiv. Now he says either for Moloch or for Avodah Zarah, other Avodah Zarah. That's the idea of the Tanakama. That's what we quote on Aleph. That if Moloch is a kind of Avodah Zarah, even if it was Shalo Kedarka, then as the Moloch, you serve it by passing through the fire. Other Avodah Zarah, that's not the way. So it's Shalo Kedarka, because we're chayiv Shalo Kedarka also. If you hold it's a kind of Avodah Zarah, Blazer of Shimon Omer, no. Lamola chayiv. If you did it from a chayiv shalom pater, because it's not an avodah zarah. So if you did avodah zarah, it's not even shalom kedarka. It's not an avodah zarah shalom lamolach. If you did it not for molach, that's not bechlal not chayiv. You're not chayiv for that. It's not like like slaughtering or libations or whatever, or incense, which is shelo kedarka, but it's learned out of psukim. This is, if you did shelo l'malach, you're potter, you're potter. It's potter of Allah, so you shouldn't do it, but it's not an avodah zarah. And therefore, if you did this kind of procedure with an avodah zarah, shelo l'malach, you're potter. Right? But according to the first opinion, that it is a kind of avodah zarah, so shelo kedarka you're chayav. Amar Ula. My time Rav Shimon says, why does Rav Shimon say, we're not talking about Rav Shimon say why it's a separate isser, it's a separate isser because the Torah calls it a separate thing. But according to, but why does he say that you're chayiv even if you do it on yourself? Rav Shimon says you're chayiv if you do this for yourself, not just for your children. My time Rav Shimon, mavir beno ubito, right? You shouldn't find among some mavir beno ubito be'esh. Rabbanan lo dash b'cha. Rabbanan don't say that. Rabbanan who say if you do it to yourself, you're not chayav for that. They don't dash b'cha. By the time we learn avedos avedosav, let's say you lost something and your father lost something. What's the obligation? Are you supposed to? You only have enough time to do one, or which one should you do first? You shalo kodem. You shalo kodemes. For me and my time, what's the reason why you have to go in your house? The pasuk says, "Efes kilo yechoevyon." You're not supposed to come poor. Right? In other words, you're supposed to take care of yourself before you take others. Yes, you're supposed to be stuck on, you're supposed to do hashavas aved, etc. But you got to take care of yourself. You're not supposed to make yourself poor. Poverty is not something to be praised. So you see that the Rabbanan also say that b'cha means yourself, b'cha. V'hasame efes. He says, no, that's because it's efes. But, he emphasizes, but nobody should be poor. There shouldn't be among you poor. Not because you, b'cha meaning you, but efes, the additional word efes tells you that make sure you're not poor before somebody else's. Take care of yourself, your own finances before you take care of somebody else's.
Charity begins at home.
Charity begins at home. Amar Rabbi Yosef Chanina. Shalosh krisis b'avodah zarah lama. Why does it say 3 creases by avodah zarah? And now the word avodah zarah is being used loosely because, as we'll see, achas l'kedarka, do it normal, but achas l'kedarka, you chay cars there too, but achas l'molach, even though molach, according to Rav Shimon, is not really a kind of avodah zarah, so it's being used loosely here. And Rashi says, Tartika be molach, and Ishbahu, there's a Rashi who explains it. Rashi about 7-8 lines from the bottom of the page. Right, the Pita Torah love, even though it's not really avodah zarah, but we call it that. We call it avodah zarah. So the Torah had to tell us, even though that's the normal way to do it, you have to tell it itself because it's not part of avodah zarah. So you have a special pasuk course for molach. Ulamadam molach avodah zarah. If you hold not like Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon, but he holds like what? That, not like our Mishnah. Our Mishnah said molach and avodah zarah are 2 separate things. And if you hold that molach is avodah zarah, karas molach lami. What if you say karas molach? You already said it by avodah zarah, right? That's lamali lemaver beno shelo kedarka. Oh, tell me if you maver shelo kedarka. If you did it not to molach, so it's not the normal way to do it. So it's to tell you there that you're also chayiv kares on molach. Now we have a pasuk for it, just like we had a pasuk to learn out the other ones of zvicha, etc. So now we have a pasuk teaching you that molach, even though it's shelo kedarka, if you're doing it to avodah zarah that's not molech, it's not called molech, you're also chayiv there. Lamanda amar megadaf avodah zarah. If you hold megadaf, now there's a machlokus and creases whether what is megadaf. We said megadaf normally means cursing Hashem, chas v'chalil, cursing Hashem, blasphemy. Right? But some say that megadaf is not blasphemy, but it's a kind of avodah zarah. So avodah zarah, if you hold mandam megadaf avodah zarah, kars megadaf lamli. What do you have to say kars? We just said, why does it say kars by molech? If you say molech is also kind of avodah zarah, telling you if it's shelo kedarka. So why does it say avodah zarah? Why does it say kars by megadaf? If kars is simply avodah zarah, let it be included in that. The Kedatanya, for this reason. Hikaris to Karis, the pasuk says Hikaris to Karis. This is in Bamir, Hikaris to Karis. Hikaris bal mazet Karis l'maba. By Megadef, it says this by Megadef, that he's going to get creases, and it says Hikaris to Karis. What is it for? One for Olam Hazeh, Olam Haba. If you curse God, you won't have a share in the next world also. Div Rabbi Kiva. That's Rabbi Kiva. Now Rabbi Kiva learns that Megadef is cursing Hashem's name, cursing God. Right? Amal Rabbi Shmuel didn't hold that way. Now Rabbi Shmuel said, "Look, find him Rabbi Nichrasa." In the same parsha, in the 2 psukim away, one pasuk before, but it says Megadef and Nichrasa. What does it say Nichrasa for? V'chi shlosha salom yesh. Are there 3? Now again, Rashi explains that according to Rabbi Shmuel, Right, Rabbi Kiva holds that Megadif is cursing Hashem's name, right? Increases. Reading Rashi 4 lines from the bottom of the page. Elami cars to cars. That's how you know Avodah Zarah. That's how you know that according to Rabbi Kiva, Megadif is not Avodah Zarah, right? So therefore, you need 2 psukim. The first one is Hikaris to cars teaches you Olam Hazeh and Olam Haba by Megadif. It's not Avodah Zarah, but it's not. When we said the Gemara said the Mandomer Megadif Avodah Zarah. Kars Megadif Lomali. It's not according to Rabbi Kiva. The Brisa starts off with Rabbi Kiva because Rabbi Kiva holds Megadif is Birkas Hashem. So why does he say Kars to Kars? Olam Hazeh Olam Haba. Rabbi Shmuel holds that Megadif is Avodah Zarah. So Rabbi Shmuel Balok Farnemer V'Nichrasa. So what does it say V'Nichrasa for by Megadif? If Megadif is Avodah Zarah, why do you need all these psukim for? One for Olam Hazeh, one for Olam Haba. There's a third one, V'Nichrasa. You're going to tell me there's 3 worlds, Yesh? Ela V'Nichrasa is Ba'olam Hazeh, again by Megadif, and Megadif is Avodah Zarah. Hikares is L'Olam Haba, and Tikares, this extra lashon of Hikares, Tikares, Dibbatar Kalashmir, the Torah says that way, a double lashon, even though it's not coming to tell me anything special. Someone's just telling you, you should know, like you translate in English, you'll surely get Kares for that. So Rashi, again, take a look at the Rashi 5 lines from the bottom of the page. Balok Farnemar, Ba'osa Parsha Asma got Megadif, Rabbi Kiva's field Megadif Hainu Baruch, it's Hashem, Kid Omer Bekrisis. Olam Haba, Nafkali Avodah Zarah. It doesn't say anything by Avodah Zarah about Olam Haba. So therefore, why does it say, when the question is Megadif, why does it say Hikaris to Kares by Megadif? To tell me that Olam is at Olam Haba. It doesn't say anything by Avodah Zarah about Olam Haba. El Mikaris to Kares. Rabbi Shmuel, Lav Rabbi Kiva. He wasn't asking Kashmir to Rabbi Kiva, but look for never Menachrasa. Rabbi Kiva Varachas Hashem. He says it's speaking of Varachas Hashem, so I need the pasuk to tell me one for Olam Hazeh, one for Olam Haba. Elatan Nafshei Komer, but look for never Menachrasa. But I know Sfir related about Avodah. I say speaking of Avodah Zarah. What do I need 3 for? If you tell me Rabbi Shmuel says I have 2 psukim for Avodah Zarah, one for Olam Hazeh, one for Olam Haba. Okay, that's what it's teaching me. The double lashon, one for Olam Hazeh, one for Olam Haba. What do I need the third one for? So he says the third one. Right, the third one is to teach me that it's tam dibratar lashon b'nei adam. But according to Rabbi Kiva, he holds Megadif is actually Birkas Hashem. So why does it say Hikaris to Karis? One from Mazeh, one from Abba. What does Rabbi Kiva need with V'Nichrasa for? That the Gemara doesn't seem to answer, right? Why does it say V'Nichrasa? The third one, Rabbi Shmuel wasn't really pointing to Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Shmuel was saying, you hold that it's Avodah Zarah. What do I need 3 for? Okay, but according to Rabbi Kiva, that Megadif is cursing Hashem, so he needs one for Olam Hazeh, one for Olam Haba, and the third one maybe is speaking about general for Avodah Zarah, not for Megadif itself. But the pasuk really says V'Nichrasa by Megadif. I'm not sure about that. All right, we'll pick it up from here tomorrow, Mr. Shem Daf Samachay from the top. Now we'll talk about Ov and Yedoni. We had before Shilas Ov and Yedoni 2. Isurim, 2 different Isurim, 2 different lav, or is it 1? We'll talk about it more tomorrow.
Moloch isn't Avodah Zarah.